all you need to do is go to the URL, which is getscandium.com, app.getscandium.com, and you create an account. So once you create an account, all you need to do next is to enable your Scandium extension. So you go to google.com, Google extension, Google extensions, and on Google extensions, you can then search for Scandium. So you can search for Scandium at Google extensions. Yeah, and there you have it. So once you have this, you install, and that is all it takes to set up Scandium, right? So once you're in, you should have something like this. This is like the dashboard. This is what your dashboard looks like. So your dashboard allows you to have view of metrics of your tests. So Scandium is not just limited to your web tests. You can also automate APIs and mobile tests. So it's like a 3-in-1 tool with the metrics here. And as well, we tend to run our test cases both locally and remotely. So for each of those runs you make, either on your local machine or remotely, you get the metrics as well. You're not left behind for collaborations. So with Scandium 2, you can collaborate with team members and stakeholders. You just click of add members, input the email addresses of all of your team members on that team that are working on that particular project, and collaboration made easy. All right. So with that said, we'll go to the next on our agenda, which is creating your first test. So creating our first test, what we want to do here is to, let's see. All right. Creating your first test, all you need to do is to follow the following steps, which is log into your Scandium account. Preconditions, you already have an account on Scandium, you've already signed up. So you log into your Scandium account, you create a project, and you click on create a test case, input your starting URL, that's the application on that test. You record your test scenario, you include your assertions where necessary, then you modify and execute test case. So now let's put that into practical. Please, am I still audible?
Yeah, right, we can hear you. There, go on.
All right, thank you. So the first thing we want to do is to create our first test. To create our first test, I'm already logged into this account, so that is checked. We want to create a new project. I already have a project here, but as a first-time user, you might want to create a new project. So you click on this drop-down you have here. On this drop-down, you have the Add New Project button. You click there, you give it a project name, your description, your purpose, and which platform do you want to test, right? Either web or mobile. So you want to do web, you give it a tag and you create your project. So once you create your project will be successfully created. And once it's created, you should see something like this. The next thing there is we want to create a test case. So to create a test case, you have either this button here next to the dashboard button, or the one at the upper right hand corner of our screen. So either of these buttons takes you to the same screen. So now we've clicked on test cases. We want to create a test. I mentioned that the next step there is to impute the starting URL to the application under test. So we want to use source demo. Let's use source demo as our application under test here. So here we have the name of the test case. We want to give our test case name. So I'll just call this a demo. This is the name of my test case. And here I want to input the starting URL of my tests. So I'll input my starting URL here, and that is all. You can also change we have these changes to the dimension of where you want your test to play. You don't need it to be on the desktop. You have the size, tablet size and mobile size, or we also have our custom fields for that. We have Windows, Mac OS, Linux, so it all depends on the device you wish to select, and also the browser. So the next thing you need to do here is to just click on record. And once I click on record, Scandium loads the starting URL that I inputted earlier on a new tab, on a new window rather. So if you look at the lower side of my screen, I have this movable pane here that allows me to make some certain actions while I am recording my test. So the first one is to stop my recording at the point where I stop recording. The next one is pause. Remember, anything I do from here going forward, Scandium captures it and converts those actions into steps that will be shown in my dashboard. So in case I want to do something in between that I don't want Scandium to capture that particular action, I can then use my pause recording button. We also have our inbox here that allows us to, maybe you're testing a site that allows you to, or that prompts OTP to you during the registration flow. Scandium has inbuilt email for you to access whatever OTP that has been sent during your registration process. So we'll also be taking a look at that. What is testing without assertions? We have our assertions that allows us to make assertions at different points of our test. We have two options to make assertions here. The first one here, we have this drop down that says you want to assert a page URL, you want to assert the page title, or you want to assert that the page contains text. Or we have this other option here. If I click here and move my mouse around the page, you tend to see it picks up different elements from the page. So if I want to assert based on elements, I can then use the second option. So now that I've loaded the URL, let me just use the first assertion I have here to say that when I load the URL, I need to be sure that I'm on the correct page that has this text swag labs. So I clicked on that. Once I click on that, I now have this command. So the command, I have different options. I'll say element should contain text. And this is the text in that element, wrapped in that element. So I'll save that. So that's my first assertion. And the final one, there you have your counter. The counter just gives you the number of clicks and activities you're actually conducting. So here for this test, we have the username and password, then we log in. So this site has already given us accepted usernames and password. So I want to use this standard user, and I want to use the password secrets_. So, and then I'll log in. All right. So now I'm logged in here. I can then go further to make further assertions if I like. Once I'm logged in, I should be able to, I should see the product page, right? Products. Then I can go further to add few items to cart. Then I'll go to my cart and I'll complete my checkout. So I'll give it a name. And I'll give my zip code and then continue. I'll go straight to checkout. All right. On the final page, I want to ensure that this scenario that I just played out now got to the final stage, or got to the final page, so I can then still go further to use my assertion to say I need this to be visible. I need to ensure that my adding items to carts checking, filling my contact details and checking out was successfully done. So I can then save. So once I am done with this, I can then click on the stop record button. So once that is done, I I am now back to my Scandium dashboard. So remember, when we started off, this place was empty, but now we have these test cards, step cards rather. All these step cards contains the actions, the activities that we conducted while we were recording. Is someone raising their hand? Okay. So all of this contains the actions we did while we were recording. So we want to save this. So let me quickly save this. So the next time I want to conduct this very scenario that I just did, I don't have to do it again. Scandium has already captured it. So all that is left for me is to come here and click on run. So if I click on run, Scandium will then replay all of those activities that I have done earlier. So we're just going to watch how Scandium plays our scenario for us. So we've added items to carts, and now we're filling the checkout form, and we're done checking out. So now we can see Scandium has finished replaying test scenario. We can now close this window and go back to let's see. Okay, yeah. Is anyone raising their hand? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Ben, please. I don't know. I can we see what a faith test will look like?
Yeah, hold on. We'd probably do that if anything fails and we debug on the call. So it does not look like an intentional field test. But thank you. I would, if we don't get anyone along the line, I will trigger one and we'll see what it looks like. Yes. Uh, so now we're back here. We've seen that all of our test steps passed, right? Based on all of the activities we did earlier. But someone might be asking that, what if, okay, this is just a record and a play too, which is whatever I give to it, that is whatever it gives to me back. So in situations whereby we have a sign up flow, so a sign up flow whereby you use email address, and if you use email address, you only tend to use that email address once, right? So the next time you're playing it, it's going to fail because you've already used that email address to register a user. So this is where the next here this is where it's going to introduce us to the next topic that we're going to talk about, which is variables and functions in Scandium, right? So for this, Scandium has inbuilt functions, and we're also going to see how we are going to perform variables in Scandium. So first off, a variable. So a variable is a container. It's simply a container that holds a value, as simple as that. So this value, right, can be referenced and changed depending on conditions. So on Scandium, there are different ways that we can actually create a variable. And let's take a look at these methods. So the first one is a step variable, right? A step variable whereby the variables of text contents of a step target element can be assigned to a variable. So values of a target element, right? We have values wrapped in the target element. Those values can actually be assigned to a variable. So okay, so let me don't go ahead of myself. Let's just go to the screen and I'll open one of our test steps, and this is the settings we have it. So here now we have this action. This action is click username, right? And we also have this button here, which is assigned to variable. This particular action now can be assigned to a variable. We don't know the target element that is assigned to this action. So we can assign it to a variable. So if we click on assign to a variable, we give it a name. We call it step. Okay, let's say call this step variable. We've now assigned this to a variable, but we do not know the value of that variable, but we just assigned it because when we're actually replaying it, then we can actually get that. But Scandium now also goes a step further to tell you that, okay, we have a target element. So the CSS selector, this is the target element there. We have the expert locator as well. The next thing there is the fact that for an input type step, now what we just showed now is like a click step, right? It's not an input type. So for an input type step, whatever value that is entered into that input field will be extracted and stored as a variable. So for this now, what we just did here is actually a click step. Now for an input type, this is what an input type is, where we typed in a data, which is type username. So for an input type here, we have the text that was assigned, which is standard underscore user. We can as well make this a variable by just clicking on the assign to variable. Just like we did earlier, we will give this a name. This is our input variable, right? So, like I mentioned earlier, a variable created from the step can be used as reference in subsequent input step or in assertion values within the test case. Okay, so the next variables that we have there is the test variables. So now for our test variables, these are variables that are created at the test level, right? They are available to all the steps within the test case in which they have been defined. So they help you define a value once, and we use this value in any of the step case, in any of the step we have within our test. So the difference between our test variable and our step variable is that our test variable are known beforehand, while our step variables are not. So for a step variable, to create a step variable in Scandium, all you need to do is to, we're currently in our test. What we need to do is to click here. Okay, let me save this first. All right, so once this is saved, I'll click on settings and I'll click on test case variables. So with test case variables, I can click here and assign my variable, whatever variable I want to assign that I want to use within that test. I can then assign it here. So to assign, let me use and then I'll give it a variable value. I don't have a value yet, but let's just say user one and save. So this my variable now has been saved within. So now let's go back to our test. And if I want to then use any of those variables that I have saved, let's say here we have type username. Okay, we've assigned this to a variable. Let's see, okay, click password, type password. Okay, so let's use it because this is an input field. So we click plus here and we click on our settings for that particular test step. We want to assign whatever inputs that comes there. Well, we want to like call a variable rather for whatever inputs that is supposed to be in that text field. All I need to do is to click on insert variable. So if I click on insert variable, I now have all of those variables that I have created. So here you can see the difference. The first one we created was a step variable, which is te step var. The next one was also a step variable, which is for the inputs. This is for click and this is for inputs. Then the final one we did was a test case variable, which is here, right? And if you should select any of the variable, you can see that in the text to assign column, you already have this name of the variable in a curly bracket. But in order to use that, we need to ensure that whatever previous input data that was assigned to that particular field has to be removed if it is not as important, if it is not relevant, or should I say, if it's actually going to go against the purpose of achieving our test case, right? So once you do that, we've now assigned this is the variable that we've currently assigned to that particular step. Then we also have the global variable. So the global variable is the variable that we can actually create at the global level, and we can use it across all of our test cases, right, within that project. Now, the difference between the test variable and the global variable is that for your test variable, you can only use the variable within the test case. You cannot use it on another test case. For your global variable, you can use it across multiple test cases. At this point, please, do we have any questions so far? Any questions? All right. Okay. So the next thing here is using our variables, which I briefly explained that when you variable can be used in step that requires an input value, which we did. So this includes steps that contains text field inputs and assertions that require additional text. So to insert a variable into the value of the text, you need to expand the settings panel of an input step. Then below the text to assign field, you locate and insert variable. I also mentioned that once a variable is selected, it will then be inserted into the text to assign field wrapped into curly brackets. So the name of the variables is contained within the brackets, which is prefixed by the source of the test variable, e.g. step dots, which is denoting that it is a step variable, which on our screenshots here, you can see the text that was assigned, for the variable, you have a step dot. So this denotes that this is a step variable. And if it is a test variable, you're going to have test dots, then your variable name, and as well for the global variable, right? So that brings us to the Scandium inbuilt function, to our functions in Scandium. What we just talked about now is the variables. So now let's look at functions. So now for our functions, we have different inbuilt functions in Scandium, which is we have the email to generate random email addresses, to generate number of any given length, to generate number of range, minimum and max, alphabets, alphanumeric, date time, and Boolean. So all of these now can actually be used based on the what you're trying to achieve with your test case, right? So these functions per se, just a moment. All right. So these functions per se, they are very similar to variables, right? But functions are inbuilt. They are inbuilt variables. Look at it as that input variables that comes with Scandium. So functions helps you to generate dynamic and unique values in your tests, right? They help you to generate dynamic and unique values, right? Which I just explained now with all of this. So now in using functions, when it's time to use our functions, we say, I gave a scenario earlier that we want to execute a sign up flow. We want to execute a sign up flow that allows you have unique values like email addresses. So once you run your test, once you record your test manually the first time, you inputted an email address. The next time you execute that test, it's going to fail because you have already used the previous email address to register the user. So this is where our inbuilt function comes into play. In place of the email address, you can then go ahead to use the insert function. So here I want to remove this. So I will click on insert function and email address. So the email address, you have your sample outputs here. So rather than using a third-party emailing address, Scandium already provides you with one that the only the whatever okay, so if I should click here and we already have the timestamp, the anatomy of this email address contains of the timestamp. So at each time you run your test, it's going to generate a new email based on your timestamp, right? And the likes. So, okay, so numbers as well. For the numbers, you can actually give it a length. So if I want to use functions of numbers, you can actually give it the number of digits we need. For range, you can give it a minimum and a maximum, alphabet as well, and so on and so forth. So for the next thing here, which is data-driven test. So now let's look at a data-driven test with Scandium. So this should be more practical. So first of all, before we dive into the practical aspects of using Scandium to do our data-driven test. So first of all, what is data-driven test? So this is like a software technique, a software testing technique that separates data, test data from test scripts. So it enables testers to reuse test scripts for different set of data. Now, Scandium provides this inbuilt feature to help you run various test data in just one test case by importing your test case in either Excel, CSV, or JSON format into Scandium. And then we can run the same test with different data. So when a data source is added to a test case, running the test case will run for each row in the data set of our uploaded sheets. So now how can we import the data source to a test case on Scandium? We record our initial test scenario. Okay, we already have that one. Then we're going to create a spreadsheet containing your data sets to ensure that the first row of the data sets contains the column header, column header names. So these columns will be referred to as the corresponding values within the test. So first, let's create a sheet here. Okay. So for our application on that test, we want to use this. So we're going to use the username and password. So we're going to say username and password. So we just want to do a bunch of field tests, right? For this data now, we already know that this application only allows a certain set of username and password. So okay, let's just go with, I would use this username, password. We already have all right, so I would use this as the port so we can log in out. All right, so for this, I will just do something. I'll trigger something so it can fail. For here as well. So we're just going to use, excuse me. All right. All right. So what we are doing here is the first time it's going to run a correct username, wrong password. Correct username, we're still inputting our username in our password field, so it will fail. Correct username, wrong password as well. Then correct username and correct password for the final run. So then we're going to save this. So we need to ensure that our header corresponds with whatever we have in our application, which is username and password. So I'll save this. Okay, no. Okay, save and download this. I just download this as CSV. All right. So once this is done, I will then go to, okay, I will then go to Scandium here. We already have this. Let me save this. Okay, then here I would click on my settings within my test. This is my test. This is where I want to import my CSV file to. So I'll click on settings within that test, and I'll click on data source. Then I'll be asked to upload my file. Click on upload, and this is the sheet we have here. All right. Now we can see now that we've imported all of our data source, right? We've imported our data that we need for this test, and then I would save. Once we've saved, that is not all. Remember, we now have this saved as variables. We have our variables as username, password, right? So we need to go and make some modification on our test. So I'll go back to my test. Just a moment. All right. So for those places where I need those data to be called, that is where I'm going to make my modification for. So I need for password. So click password. Let me remove this. Yeah. Okay. So for type username, I want to call that here. So to call that here, I need to remove this that is hard coded, and then I'll insert variable. So to insert variable, we now have external file, which is password, right? And external file username. So I'm going to put that username. So for password as well, I'm going to do the same thing for password. I'm going to remove what we have here, a set variable, external file, password. All right. So I'm going to execute this. The intentions of this is that once it gets here and it clicks on login, it will not get to see do much of our assertions. So let's go ahead and run this. All right. So it's going to try the first one that we have on our sheet. Impute username. It's going to impute a wrong password. Then when it clicks on login, we tend to see that we have our error message that saying username and password does not match any in this service. So this was going to fail our test, right? So let's just wait until it fails. So someone was asking earlier that we should trigger a failed test. So this is an example of what a failed test looks like in Scandium. All right. So now this has failed and it has said an error occurred, could not find. The first one has failed. So it's going to play all over again up until it exhausts all of the data we fed to it. So it has done the first scenario. It is now doing the second scenario. And this is going to fail as well. All right. So we're just going to wait. So once it fails, we're now going to allow it to play for the third scenario. And on the fourth scenario, we expect that everything is going to pass. So what we did the first time was correct username, incorrect password, correct password, incorrect username, incorrect password. Then the final one has to be correct username and correct password. So it's playing the third scenario now, which is All right. And then it should play the last scenario, which is a positive scenario. And that should log us in our application. All right, so element not found. And now it's going to play the final one now. All right, so now we're logged in. Then it's just going to go ahead and play all of our scenario just like we did for a valid user. All right. So once this is done, we now have our reports that all of our tests has passed. Right. So far, are we confused? Do we have any questions? Do we need any clarification anyway? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We can.
Am I too fast? Please, if you need clarification anyway, you can just.
No, sir, you are not too fast. Since this is a practical class, we are still trying to digest it. So if you have any question, we definitely ask.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. All right. So with this now, rather than having to ideally, if I want to conduct this test, right, I'd have to go to my application and I have to start inputting username, I'll input password, and I'll click on login. Did it go through? No. I'll come again, I'll include wrong username, I'll come include wrong password, I'll click. Did it go through? No. Right? For different scenarios, especially for this login feature, right? So rather than having to do all of that manually all the time, that is what I just did now. I created a sheet and I included all of my scenarios, right? For username, correct username, wrong password, correct username, wrong password, wrong username, wrong password, wrong password, wrong username, different scenarios up until the final one, which is the positive scenario, which is correct username, correct password. You want to like ensure that only a valid, or should I say only a valid user with a valid credential should be able to access your website, right? If this is the scenario we just did now with Scandium, without having to do it back and forth. All you just need to do is to create your data source, right? Create your test once, input your variables when necessary, and then just allow it to do all of this for you, right? Without having to manually do all those process, right? So that is how you can actually perform data-driven tests with Scandium. So with that now, that leads me to the email testing. Or that brings me to email testing per se. So for email testing, Scandium already has, they've already provided, or let me start by saying that when testing applications, right, it is common for emails to be triggered, right, by certain actions. So an example would be when completing your order on an e-commerce website, an email can be sent to you to show that the order's confirmation, right? Or you may also want to access your email to confirm that an email, right, was indeed sent to the user, or perhaps click on a link that was being sent in the email, or even extract a value, right, from the email that was sent to the user. So instead of having a third-party mail provider during your test, Scandium has already provided an inbuilt email service that users can actually access email triggered to be used during tests. Okay, so without um, saying much let's just go ahead and demonstrate this. So for this now, I would want to use a site that allows us to a moment. All right, so let me just create a new test with a site. Okay, so for here now, I want to use this site, and this site allows so first thing first, like we did before, we want to create our test. We just want to do our manual process once. We want to do our manual process once. We can then do our modifications. So for this site now, this is the staging environment for Scandium. So we want to create an account, like I mentioned. So we click on create account, and we're going to fill our credentials here. So here, first things I want to say Tony, full name, all this. All right. For the email address, now when you want to test such scenarios, rather than using another email, we can then go to our test case. So this is our test case, and right here we have this email icon. So if I click on that email icon, excuse me, if I click on that email icon, this is the test email that has been provided for me, right, to use for this test. So I can then copy this, and I'll go back to my test step, and I impute it, right? For the row, I'll click here, and I'll click here. Of my password, I'll just call this test. Excuse me. Please, please give me a minute. All right. So I will then click on this and click on create account. Now, one time an OTP has been sent to the email address that I provided. All I need to do now, since I've already copied the email address from my test, I need to go to email inbox. I'll click on this email inbox here, and here on this email, it's going to load the inbuilt email inbox we have here, and the first one, which is here. So I will click here, and this is our OTP, right? So I'm just going to highlight this, and I would right click. So once I right click there, I have these options that says we have Scandium test scenario recorder. I can then extract this value. I can copy this however I want to, but I want to extract the value from the elements. And once I click on extract value, that value has already been extracted, right? So I would also copy this, and I'll go back here, click here, and I'll paste it. Click on verify. Voila, we're now logged in. Then I would impute I'm going to impute, or should I say use my, okay, instead let's do welcome. So I should ensure that our sign up was successfully done and we're now brought back to the home page. So once this is done, I will just log out. All right, so this is my test. I'm done with this. So I can then click on stop recording. Just like we did for the other scenario before, we now have a new scenario, a sign up flow. We now have a new sign up flow. So this is the modification we need to do now. Yeah. We have name, click email, type our email. We want to change our email, right? We'd have to click on this plus sign and our settings. Here we already have this, so we just remove this and we're going to insert function, like I mentioned. So once you click on insert function, we want to insert email, right? And we click on insert. So we now have this. The next thing that we also want to do is to remember we went to the email inbox and we extracted a value, right? So this value that was extracted, this is it on step 23. We want that value to be a variable. So we can then go ahead and assign this to a variable. I will call this OTP, or let's say generated OTP. And we'll save this. All right. So once this is done, I will then go ahead. I'll save this. Oh, I think one more thing. We've added this to a variable. So now this variable that we've added, where do we need the variable to be called? We need it to be called when we type in when we input our OTP, right? So we're going to then insert variable. So what insert variable there? The OTP there. We insert it and I'll save this and then run our test. All right. So it's going to click on sign up and impute the name. Impute. Going to give it a new email. Assigned role. Create a password. It's going to check. Click on create. All right. Then it's going to open our email inbox here. So once this is downloading, it's then going to pick up the email, the OTP that was sent to the email inbox, copy it, and then, okay. Yeah. Verified our account, and now we're logged into our account. So that is it, as simple as that, right? I don't know if I'm confusing anybody or it looks like magic to anyone there. Please bring my attention to it. But this silence is scaring me. Can somebody bail me out? Is it confusing? Where do you need?
It's not confusing. It's just scary. Just like the way our silence is scary. Actually, this is the first time of seeing this this particular this thing that you're using. So I'm still trying to compare. I'm talking about myself. I don't know about other if you have similar this thing, but I'm still trying to comprehend. I'm looking forward to the recording of this class.
Please, which automation tool do you use?
Postman.
Okay, just Postman, yeah?
Yes, just Postman. I'm a newbie.
We're all newbies. Every day we learn. Okay, thank you. Favor, you were saying something.
Yes. Why I think why I don't have any questions is because I'm just overwhelmed by the whole thing. I don't even know what to ask, but I'm trying to digest what you're saying, and I'm also in, and I use Postman too, just Postman for now.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, Uche, Uche, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Uche, it's nice hearing your voice. It's good to hear. Damn, please and comment.
Thank you.
You've been quiet for so long.
Yeah, I
What?
I've not really explored Scandium 2 before, so I'm just actually seeing it for the first time. Yeah, but to an extent, we are following. Just that what you're just seeing for the first time, you need to like rewatch the
Digest.
aspect of storing variables and then calling them later. Where although those ones are kind of clear to me since they are common with other even with code automation, right? Eh,
Yes.
but uh, but generally, I don't really have question for now. If I have, I'll ask before the end of the class.
Okay. So I would explain. Okay. Thank you very much, Uche. Esther, I want to hear your lovely voice. There's only one Esther here. Oh. Esther, don't end, please.
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes, please. What challenges are you having? Someone.
Mm, well, I've not used this tool before, really. So I'll just have to go back to this recording and listen afresh for me to actually digest everything you're saying. But I've been following.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that is confusing you? I would explain this.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. For now, it's that variable part. I was not able to really get it. So
All right.
where you were inputting test variable and other variables. So I didn't really get that part.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Noted.
Thanks.
Uchi, let's hear from you.
Please just a little clarification, right?
Yes.
From what I've seen so far, right? I don't know. I just want to be sure I really understood you. If I want to run a test on Scandium, right?
Yeah.
I will first of all sign up, right?
Yes, correct.
After signing up, I'll run the manual process using that
Once.
recording
Yes,
once.
once.
Okay,
Yes.
so when I do that, automatically Scandium records all the flow in that
Exactly.
manual process I did. I'm just in that manual aspect, I'm doing my everything on my own, right? I'll
Yes.
click, I will enter and all that. So
Yes.
when I'm done, it has automatically saved all my step, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll now go to test case and now start this storing them in variables, the one that needs to be stored and all that.
Exactly.
That's the general flow in summary, right?
Yes, that's it in summary.
Okay, so no problem. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Dami, let's have it. At the going down with Lola, let's have it. All right, Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma.
Well, for me, I've used Candron. So all what you've seen, I have experience with it already. So
You have experience with Scandium already, you say?
yes, yeah,
Wow,
and
wow,
I'm
wow.
doing more. So thank you.
Let me celebrate you. Okay, so you're familiar with it, so it's not like magic to you, yeah?
Yes,
Wow, that's good, that's good. So how's your experience been with Scandium?
it was
Hello.
great. It was great.
Do you still use Scandium for your everyday testing activities as well?
Well,
Or
well, it was my mentor that taught me how to use Candron. For now, I'm not practicing manual testing. I'm working as I'm doing intern in a company right now presently as admin officer. So
Okay.
I'm not practicing it for now. I'm looking
All right.
for
Thank you.
opportunities where I can learn more.
Wow, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And the good news about Scandium is you can actually go and get yourself a free account on Scandium. We have the free version. You just sign up and create an account, and then you can just use it to do your daily test, like automate stuff
Yeah, I
based
have
on.
an account.
All right, thank you. So that's for everybody. Information for everybody. Please go and sign up for Scandium. All right, thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Hi, Vivian.
Hello, Ben. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. There's your friend. Have I been doing some abracadabra or first of which automation tool you use?
I've not been using anyone. No. This is my first time of hearing about Scandium, and then this 8-week program is my first venture into software testing. So I'm still trying to understand what's going on.
Okay, so far in this class, do you think I've confused you or I have convinced you?
So far in this class, no, you didn't confuse me. I just figured out that this particular Scandium
Mhm.
makes testing kind of easier.
Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is it sorry, I don't mean to murder your name, but in the southern part of the country, we call it terrible. Is it terrible or terrible?
Hi, good morning. It's terrible.
Yeah,
Good
terrible.
morning. Yeah,
Good morning,
terrible.
sir. These are terrible.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. So I would like to know your inputs, like so far with what we've done. Is it
Like I just came online like now, like I came online right now.
oh, okay. All right,
Like
okay.
I'm so sorry. I came online right now. So
Yeah,
like
no problem. No problem, no problem.
mm.
All right. Okay. Dami, are you back now? All right. So I'll just go through initially the email testing is supposed to be the okay, before I go further to the test suites and all of that, let me just start from the variables and do it in the simplest form that we can. In under 30 minutes, it should be done in 30 minutes or less, right? So hold on, let me set up my timer so I don't give information overload. All right, so uh, let's go over the variables. Let me start with the variables and let me use a more simple testing flow. Let me just save this. Okay, yeah, we can still use this as long as it has inputs. For the variables, I mentioned that variables are actually values, right? We have value and we have key. We have key and we have value, right? So whatever you let's have it here. All right. So you have your value and we have the key. So, or should I say the variable name? Let's say the value and the variable name. So this, what you have on your screen now is a box, right? In this box, the name of the box is none, but we have something inside of the box, which is 5. So we're storing that 5 inside of the box. So what this means is that instead of me to add code 5, instead of me to add code 5, I will just call on num. If I call on num, it will definitely return 5, right? So even if I go to the back end, I don't have to, everywhere I have num, I don't have to go there and be changing it to 555. I will just go to the parent folder where I stored my variable, right? Remember, I gave my variable name num and it is 5. So if I have like 6 places I need to call that 5, I don't have to go to each of those places and be typing 5555. I can just call on num. And now I want to change that 5. So instead of me to change the 5 in all of those 6 places, I will just go to where I save my variable. I will change the variable value, which is 5. I can change it to 2. So if I just change this once, anywhere anywhere I have called the variable name num, it is going to return 2 to me. So this is how variable works ideally. So let's now look at it in Scandium. In Scandium here, let me start with the step variable. So for the step variable, where we have type, so I'll click here and I'll open it. Remember, we have Latic. The text that was assigned to that particular text field here is Latic. So if I have other places, if I have like 8 other places below or anywhere within this test step that I need to type in Latic, I don't have to go there and be changing Latic. I can actually assign this to a variable. The beautiful thing about Scandium is whatever inputs you input somewhere within your test step, you can assign it to a variable. That's the first one. So this now I can assign this to a variable and give it a variable name, right? As well as our test variable. So this is for step variable. So now as well as our step variable. So for our test variable, if I want to create a variable, I can click on this settings button here and click on test case variables. If I should click on add new variables, and if I call this num and I call this 5, I save this. All right. So this num is saved, right? So I'll go back to my step. Let's say where I have lactic, I want to call that variable, that 5 that I saved. So I can come on insert variable. So if I click on insert variable, this is num. So if I click on num, so we already have the variable name here, which is test.num. Num is the name of the variable. Test is actually the level where we stored our variable. So if I have other places too that I need to call 5, not just this place. There is 5 here. There is 5 here. Let me see. Okay, here I have type. So I'll click here. So instead of me to come here to add code, instead of me to come here to add code it as 5, I can then just call this, either I click on test.num, right? Or I just click on insert variable and click on this. Once I click on this, we have it here. So I can do that going forward, like in every other place that requires that variable that I stored. Are we together? But now, mind you, this is for only within the test case. But what if you want to store a variable at a global level that you can call it across different test cases, right? That you can call it across different test cases. You can then go ahead and you can click on these your settings here. We have our global variables, and we can click on add new variable. So give it a name. Say I'll just use this as G, and I need this to be 7. I'll click on save. This is it. So back to our test. If I go back to our test, and just to show you that our variable was saved, if I click on type, set it. If I click on the set variable, you can see the variable here. right? So this variable here that we stored at a global level can be used across multiple test cases. But the one on the test level can only be used within a particular test case. Please, am I communicating? Right?
Yes, you
Thank
are, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just wanted to clear that on variables with Scandium, right? So, but another thing I need you to note that a variable that is being created, a step variable that is created, can only be used within your test case, within another step in your test case. The test variable as well can be used across multiple test steps within your test case. But a global variable can be used across all of your test cases in that project. It is not limited to this, right? Okay. So the second part that I deduced that people had quite a number of problems with is the email testing, right? The flow of the email testing I did. So for the email testing, I mentioned that when you're testing an application, please, first of all, before I even go, how many of us are familiar with email testing? Please, show of hands. Emojis, show of hands. Let me know how I'm going to. So none of us is familiar with email testing. Is that what we're saying? People of God. Okay. Um, for the email testing, I would say now that when you're testing, we have different applications that allow us to verify. We want to verify that it will perform certain actions on these our websites. An email should be triggered to the user, and the email should contain XYZ content, right? So we want to validate this. Another scenario is you're signing up as a user, OTP is sent to your email, and you need the OTP to complete your sign up process. So that was what we just did. So to do that, all you just need to do is, like I mentioned earlier, record your test scenario once the first time. Then in the place where you need the email address to be imputed, you don't use an external email address. You come here on your test case, right? And you click on this envelope button here. You have an email address that is provided. So this is like a one-time use. You click on this to copy. Once you copy it, you paste it in the field, the text field that requires you to upload to input your email address. Then, once you do that, the OTP is being sent to that particular email that you provided. So in the course of our recording, right, we had access to our email, to our provided email inbox. So in the movable tool that I showed you on the lower right-hand side of my screen, you have the icon, the email icon there. So if you click on it, once you click on it, let me show you this. Okay, let's view this. All right. So this is a screenshot. This is a screenshot of let me see. Okay, let me go to a test that has status so we can actually see. All right. So here we had click on verify email and then drag. Okay. So I will just, this is the baseline results. All right. So when we clicked on this particular icon here, when we clicked on it, it brought us to the Scandium's email inbox, which we can see here on our screen. And here we have the OTP that is provided inside of the email body contents, right? And as well, we were able to extract it. So if we want to verify the first scenario now, which is we need to verify that an email was sent to the user when the user was conducting this scenario, we can then go further to use our assertions. So once you click on this box, you're now being directed to this our email. This is our email interface. Then you want to also validate. You want to validate that, okay, this email is from Scandium or this email is from your provider. You also want to use your validation to say that, okay, you want to validate the contents of the email. Depends on the requirements. What is it you're expecting from the email? You can use your assertions, like I mentioned earlier, to validate that. And also, say you have the email address, the OTP rather. You want to copy this. You want to extract this OTP value and use it for your sign-up flow, which we did. You can then go ahead to extract this. And once you extract this, so if I should go back, so once you extract that, it is going to create a test step for you that has that value that we extracted. So this is the extracted value we have here, 80625, whatever the number is. In that extracted value, remember we've extracted it. So now this step now holds the value in that email, right? So that value there, what we did was we assigned the we assigned that step to a variable. So once we assigned it to a variable, we gave it a variable name, which you have here, and we have our extraction type. Extraction type is, do you need the entire details of that value that you extracted from that element, or you need the first number, the last number, the first date, last date? It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. So once we do that, okay, we need the entire thing. Once we do that, we then go ahead to insert. Where we saved it as a variable, we now go to where we impute the OTP. Where we impute the OTP, which is the first one, type here. So if I should click here, this step is where I'm to impute my first OTP. So all I just need to do is to remove whatever I have here and then insert variable. And once I insert the variable, I insert variable of the step for that generated OTP. That is this OTP extraction step. I inserted it here. And then, so whenever I run this, it depends. It just goes on and on. Whenever I run my test, it sends an email. So once it sends an email, Scandium will just automatically open the inbox. Once it opens the inbox, it's going to open that email, pick that value, then it has already assigned it to a variable, and then it's going to paste it in the fields where you need your OTP to be pasted on, and you just proceed with your sign up. And it goes on and on and on without you having to do all of this manually. Like once you do it once and you make your necessary settings where possible, you just keep running and running and running, and there you have it, right? So before we go to the last part of it, are we good on that? Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so please, about this email that you always refer to up there, does it mean that to every site I want to test with Scandium, after I've manually recorded it, that Scandium will automatically generate an email for me to use for any website at all I'm trying to test that involves using an email? Or is it just for the same?
Please, can you take that again?
Okay, I mean this email now, right, that you always refer to, that will come to this case, we'll go to that envelope and copy the email. Then we can now insert it. So my question is, so to any website I want to test using Scandium, right?
Yes.
Scandium will automatically generate an email for me to use and sign up in that manual process, or what?
Yes, exactly. This is what we have here. Yes, Scandium automatically. So once you create a test, this is my test, right? I want to use for that flow. All I just need to do is come here, and Scandium has already generated one for me. So I'll just copy it. This is the email I will use.
Okay, in the whole of that very testing that entire website until I'm done with testing it with Scandium, right?
Yeah, until you're done testing it with Scandium on the first instance, which is the manual process.
Okay.
Right. So so that whatever email that is being sent to the email you provided will be sent to your Scandium mailbox.
Okay.
Yes, but do not forget that once you're done with that, right? Now what we have here is we already have a static value here at the beginning. So once you're done with that, you need to come to let's see, we need to come to where we provided the email address here, which is type email. We need to come to that step. And if you notice the difference between this and what we copied is before the dots. Can you see the difference? Before the dot, we already have a hard-coded value here before the dots, right? But here in our when we like use it as a function, we changed the hard-coded value before the dots, we change it to timestamp. So timestamp is at any should I say timestamp is, let's say we're running our test case now, right? We're currently at 10:21, then whatever seconds that come after it, that's the timestamp is going to replace this with. So for each time you run, it's just going to give you a different timestamp, right? But whatever email that is coming to that inbox is coming to your inbox with a different timestamp, with the timestamp of the particular time it is running email.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are we good on that?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your question. Any other question? I just realized, please have mercy on me. I just realized Emeka has been on this call and I haven't called Emeka's name. Emeka, please pardon me. Do you want to speak to me, man to man?
No, it's not in I'm actually following. It's difficult understanding all this, but I would go over and over, and hopefully I would follow.
Wow, wow. All right, thank you. But is there anywhere you would want me to like touch on?
Nothing in particular. So far I'm following, like with the example, I'm watching the screen while you are doing getting it, just for me to digest and then know how to relate with past lectures too with this. That's basic. This is my first time ever of getting involved with
All right. Thank
IT.
you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oluchi ran before. Oluchi is back. Hi, Oluchi.
Hi, I'm sorry I came later.
Oh, you late? Oh, okay. I thought you were here before. So how, like so far, do you have any questions? Do you have anything so far with what you've seen and all of that?
No, no questions. I will have to go through the recordings again, and then if I have any questions, I'll contact the presenter.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So finally on our to-do list for today, we want to look at suites, right? Our test suites. This is just easy. Just we're not recording anything, we're not doing anything. So this is an instance whereby we've created multiple test cases, right? You've created multiple test cases and you want to execute these test cases. Ideally, you don't want to execute these test cases one at a time, right? So this is where test suite comes into play. Our test suite is a collection of test cases, right, that often share similar rules and configuration. So like I mentioned that after you created a bunch of test cases, ideally you don't want to run them one at a time. So instead, you just want to run those multiple tests at the same time, rather. So now, let's look at some of the, or let's look at a few situations where you might want to run your suites instead of a single test case. So in situations whereby you want to run certain critical test cases in your deployment pipeline during deployment, or you want to run a certain test case, you want to run some certain test case, right? at scheduled frequency. So we'll also be looking at scheduling. And you also want to run these test cases related to a particular module of each feature. Let's say all the test cases you have for login and sign up, you want to run them collectively. All the test cases you have for dashboard and payment and all of the like, you want to run them collectively. Or you want to run all of them, all the test cases you have within that project. So now let's see how we can do that. So to do that, it's just a few simple clicks. We can do that with a few simple clicks. So I'll save this and I'll go back to test case. So these are some test cases I have, right? I have more than one test case. So I don't want to start executing this test case one at a time. All I need to do is to put all of them inside the pursuit. I'll just click on suites here. So if I click on suites, I'll click on new suites. So for my new suite, I can give my test case a name. Say, for instance, we want to perform regression, right? So say this is like a daily regression, and we give it a description, the XYZ anything. We want which environment you need these your test cases to run. If you don't have anything here, you can click on add new to configure your environment. But I've already configured a few here. So we have Windows or Linux or both, right? So you can then select any of the execution environments you need. And also our execution type. Do you need your test case to run in sequence or you need it to run parallel? So what does this mean? This means that in sequence, you want one to finish executing before the next one, depending on how you arrange your test case. But in parallel, you just want everything to run. You don't want to wait. You don't want one to wait for the other before it executes. Okay, so failure mode. This is okay. I'll just leave this. Test delay. This is also particular in individual test cases. For the starting URL, this is optional, right? The starting URL is if you have your test cases, let's assume that, okay, I used source demo and I used Scandium staging. So if I have two different test cases that has two different URL, right, I can then leave this place empty, right? Because I want each of those test cases to execute based on the URL that I have provided each of them. But if I have similar test cases and they all use the same URL, I can then go ahead and impute the URL here. So whatever URL that we have here is what the test cases will be executed upon. Then now the final step here is to add our test case. So all I need to do is click here and I have a list of all my test cases that I have within this project. So I can then go ahead to click on select them. And once I'm done selecting them, I can then click on create suite. All right, now this is my suite. My suite has been created and we have 5 test cases in it. So rather than running these 5 test cases individually, I can then go ahead and click here and run my test locally. I can run my suite locally or I can run my suite remotely. So locally is time consuming and resource consuming. So what does this mean is, what this means is that if I should run locally, I have to watch my screen for every of those test cases to execute one after the other, and it is time consuming. It's going to delay me from doing other things. But if I should run this remotely, I can then, it's going to run in the cloud, Scandium cloud provider, and then I can then proceed to do other things while this is running. So when it is done running, I can then go ahead to view my results, right? So that is it about test suites. Then finally, our schedules. Remember, I mentioned that this is a daily run, right? So I don't want to come here every day to click on run. I just need to automatically run every day. So all I need to do here is to just click on schedule runs. So once I schedule runs, I can say, okay, this is my daily check. I'll give it a description. And then I have the option, do I need it to run hourly, I need it to run. It's going to run hourly, like run once every hour. Then daily, I need to give it a time when it's going to run within the day. Okay, let's say 8, and I already have my time zone. Then I'll click on save. And if you want to make it weekly, you select the day of the week you need it to run, and you select the time of the day you need it to run. You save. So this is a daily check. So I'll select day, select my time, and save. So once I save this, every 8 a.m. this my test suite is going to run. And when it is done running, I'm just going to have my test results. Yeah, just click on my reports. Okay, so results. I'll just click on my results, and I'm going to get the results of my suites. If it's passed, if it's failed, and if I should click further, I'm going to see the number of times a particular test ran. I'm going to see the duration, and I'm going to see the status. So to also debug further, imagine we're having a failed test. You can then go further to open the test and see exactly where it is failing. Right? So not to bombard you with so many information, that is just how you can actually use Scandium to automate your process without having to write a single line of code. Now, all of these that I've just showed you with just clicks and modification. If you want to do this on Cypress, we know we have to write, you have to like know some JavaScript functions, JavaScript concepts. And we're going to use this all as well to, you have to like write some, understand the script on how to write Cypress and the likes, right? So all of this now can be time consuming, especially when you're setting up your test environment. But with Scandium, it is less time consuming. As long as you've just explored, you've done your exploration on the application, fine. You already know what to do, where this is supposed to go into. You just load it on Scandium and you do your manual process once for every scenario. You do your modification and you just keep running and keep running and keep running for your regression and sanity and the likes and so forth and so on. It's just easy as peasy. I know it's a whole lot on the first day. If you need a personal demo, right, you can actually head on to Get Scandium website and you can book a demo session, and we can actually walk you through the application, right? We also have YouTube resources. You can go on YouTube and type Get Scandium. So on our page, you have videos, tutorial videos where you can actually see how this tool works in action for different scenarios as well. So with that has brought me to the end of my session. Do we have anything for me? Thank you, Resta. Thank you, Favor. Thank you, Mistura. Thank you, Emeka, Oluchi, Terebo, Vivian. Thank you all. So do we have any questions? All right. So if there are no questions, thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and we look forward to scheduling a demo with you guys. And you can also go to the website Get Scandium and create a demo account. Just explore the account. It's free. Explore, use it for different scenarios that you'd like, and you can actually give feedback when necessary. So thank you all once again, and
Okay.
Thank you so much.
It's all right. Thank you very, very much, Benjamin,
Thank you
for
so much.
facilitating this
Thank you for
section.
your time.
yeah, thank you very much.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
We are really grateful for this section, right? We hope to see you often, right? So please do not hesitate to reach out to Benjamin. They're actually the people that that built Scandium no code automation tool, right? You can follow him on his social media accounts so that while exploring, if you have any challenge, you can reach out to him. And me, on my own aspect, I really can't wait to exploit Scandium. I've tried out some coding automation, automated tools, right? But honestly, Scandium is really interesting. So we are really grateful for having us today. Thank you very much. And the recordings will be available on the Tech Eagle Community YouTube channel. So you can always go back and rewatch again, right? Thank you everyone for joining
Please,
the
I have a
section.
question. Sorry, ma.
Okay.
Is Mr. Ben on the on the WhatsApp this thing WhatsApp group with us?
No, I'm not sure. He's not.
Okay.
Okay, can we have his social media and the source to follow him immediately?
Yeah, please, can you drop your handle for us, Benjamin?
Okay, so I would each of my socials like this. On LinkedIn, I am
Maybe LinkedIn. Yeah.
on LinkedIn I am Benjamin Otunjo. You can just search his face on LinkedIn. And yeah. So I think I would reach out to Uche and I'll drop we have a community link, right, for Scandium community. So you can actually join that community, and if you're having challenges with your test or whatever, you can then reach out to us on that Slack community. So we can provide first-hand feedback to your solution.
It's all right. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Yeah, thank you.